On July 8, 2003, a cashier at a Little Caesars pizzeria in San Jose, California answered a call unlike any other. A young girl's voice, trembling and choked with tears, carefully spelled out her address letter by letter. What the employee couldn't know was that this child had been kidnapped, and her abductor was forcing her to make that call. After days in captivity, this was her sole connection to the world beyond her prison. He came back upstairs holding a pizza box and just stared at me. He handed me a flyer. It had my picture on it and it read, "Missing." Then he turned to me and said, "I have to get rid of you tonight." Kidnapped, assaulted, and bound, 9-year-old Jeanette Tamayo was long gone when police finally arrived at the scene. A young girl was abducted from her home after school. Authorities later obtained footage from a neighbor's security camera, but the poor quality of the recording rendered it nearly useless. Police have no leads in the disappearance of 9-year-old Jeanette Tamayo. After days with no breaks in the case and no statewide Amber Alert issued, Jeanette realized she had to become her own savior. My fear turned into courage. I told myself, I'm a fighter, I'm gonna make it. In the bustling Silicon Valley city of San Jose, California, 9-year-old Jeanette Tamayo stepped off her school bus and headed home. Arriving at her house, she noticed the screen door was slightly open. She thought perhaps her mother had come home from work early and didn't dwell on it. Once inside, she went to her room and immediately sensed something was wrong. Her bedroom window was shattered, glass scattered across the floor. She instinctively stepped back and ran for the phone to call her mom, but the cord had been severed. Before she could process the situation, a knock came at the door. Jeanette turned to see a stranger peering through the screen. Frightened and confused, she hesitantly opened it. When he was asking me questions, he kept peeking inside, trying to see who else was there. That made me feel really uncomfortable, and I started slowly closing the sliding door. I got scared because I felt a really bad vibe from him. He put his hand in the way, forced the door open, grabbed me, and took me to my brother's room. He threw me on the bed and took off my pants. Out of respect for Jeanette, we will not detail the assault due to its extremely graphic nature. After he was finished, her attacker handcuffed her and tied her legs together. He then carried her to his car, which was parked in the garage. As he tried to open the garage door, he could only lift it a few inches before another vehicle pulled up directly outside. From the back seat, Jeanette recognized her mother's car. My brother crawled under the garage door when it opened those few inches. The first thing I told him was to run. But her abductor was already moving. He exited the car and advanced toward her brother Paul. At just 15, Paul knew he was outmatched but chose to fight anyway. He grabbed a screwdriver from a counter and charged. The man easily disarmed him and began punching him repeatedly in the face. Restrained by handcuffs and ropes, Jeanette could only watch in horror as the man dragged her brother into the house. Once inside, they confronted Rosalia, Jeanette's mother. She fought the intruder, managing to pull him away from her son. Paul then rushed to a kitchen cabinet, pulled out a frying pan, and tried to help his mother. Again, the man disarmed him and turned the improvised weapon against Rosalia, striking her repeatedly until she collapsed. I remember hearing my mom screaming, and then it went quiet. I couldn't hear much after that. I saw the man rush back into the garage and get into the car. When I saw blood on his face, I asked, "Did you kill them?" He just started laughing, and I began to cry. I didn't know if he had killed them. I didn't know if they were even there anymore. Seeing that blood on his face, I thought they were gone. My family was gone. Driving like a maniac, Jeanette's kidnapper cut through a neighbor's bush. Struggling against her restraints, she managed to turn for one last look at her house before they turned the corner. An overwhelming relief washed over her when she made eye contact with Rosalia, who was running frantically behind the car. Her face was badly wounded and covered in blood, but she was alive. Not far behind, her brother Paul was painfully limping toward bystanders, waving his arms and screaming, "Call the police! Call the police!" As soon as the car rounded the corner, Jeanette began screaming at passing drivers, slamming her shoulder against the window to get their attention. But her efforts were noticed by her attacker, who immediately grabbed the screwdriver and violently struck her with it. After being hit twice, she slid down out of his reach. I just remember sliding down, laying there and looking up at the ceiling of the car, thinking to myself, I'm not gonna make it. I'm gonna die. Back at the house after police arrived, Rosalia refused to get into the ambulance. She was desperately trying to explain everything to the detective and officers. But her condition was deteriorating rapidly and her panic wasn't helping. Once they secured Paul, they had to force her onto a stretcher. Both were taken to the nearest hospital. To a mother, I don't care what happened to you. You are thinking of your kids, but I couldn't do anything. I couldn't do anything. I didn't protect my kids. With their only witnesses gone, police had very little to work with. From the outset, they knew Jeanette had been kidnapped, that someone had broken in, cut the phone lines, and attacked the family before leaving with her. Beyond that, all they had was the crime scene. One of the first things I noticed in the garage was a lot of blood. I knew at that point this was a very violent crime. You start thinking, are we going to bring her home alive? Heather Randall, the detective assigned to the case, initially feared some of the blood in the kitchen and garage might belong to Jeanette. As her forensic team collected samples and examined the scene, she also called in handlers with bloodhounds to begin the search immediately. Sadly, this led nowhere, as neither Jeanette nor her attacker had been injured during the initial assault. During this process, Randall noticed a security camera on a neighbor's driveway. Reviewing its footage from the past hour, they established a rough timeline. 30 minutes before Jeanette arrived, her attacker smashed her bedroom window and burglarized the house. He then returned to his car and waited for her. After she arrived, he followed and knocked on the door. He then assaulted her in the bedroom for nearly half an hour before they moved to the garage. Meanwhile, Paul and Rosalia arrived home. The last part of the recording clearly captured Rosalia and Paul screaming for help. "Call the police! Call the police!" But Randall was most interested in one specific moment, when the attacker's car was directly in front of the camera. In California, issuing a statewide Amber Alert requires either a name, a license plate number, or a phone number linked to the perpetrator. It's heartbreaking. You have the evidence right there. It's so close, and yet you need just a little bit clearer video. So before she could re-interview Paul and Rosalia, she alerted the media, hoping that even without an Amber Alert, the public would mobilize and spread the word about Jeanette's disappearance. Together with her department, she got helicopters with loudspeakers in the air, calling Jeanette's name, and gave press conference after press conference to ensure everyone in San Jose was thinking of her. It puts 1,000 more sets of eyes out on the street. We knew it was extremely important to push the information to the public, give them a picture of Jeanette, make sure flyers were flooded throughout the city. During the car ride, Jeanette kept mental notes of every turn, hoping she could find her way home if she ever escaped. After a short drive, the car suddenly stopped. The man pulled into the garage of a large white house. He opened the car door, picked her up, and carried her inside. He took her upstairs to the second floor and unlocked a door. Behind it was a tiny room with a TV, a small window, a bed, and a bathroom. He threw her on the floor and approached her with a menacing look. After each assault, he would cuff her wrist to the shower head, run the water, and leave her there alone. I started to break down and cry. That shower became my only safe place because every time he left me there, he wouldn't touch me, hurt me, or rape me. The next morning, the grim reality of the kidnapping settled in. While the Tamayo family gathered around Rosalia in San Jose, police asked some relatives to participate in public appeals. The next morning, he was watching the news again. My cousin was talking to me through the TV. She was saying, "Jeanette, if you can hear us, just know, be strong, girl. We're looking for you," she said. "Just don't give up." That gave me hope. That gave me strength. I decided I was either going to fight to get out of there or die trying. On her second day of captivity, Jeanette began to strategize her best course of action against her abductor. Because my life was at risk, I said to myself, I have to have a conversation with him so he gains my trust. So, she attempted to ask the most casual question she could muster. I just remember asking him, "Where are you from?" Her attacker turned with a suspicious look. He stood up, stared straight into her eyes, and for the first time since the kidnapping, smiled. An intense wave of disgust filled her. At that moment, she wished she could spit in his face, stab him with his screwdriver, or enact any act of retaliation imaginable. But instead, she listened to her instinct. She smiled back, trying to appear as innocent as possible. She then asked if she could have a glass of water. He handcuffed her and for the first time left her alone in the room while he went downstairs. Now by herself, she nervously fiddled with the handcuffs. She had noticed the lock didn't require a key. It was mechanical. I remember feeling with my fingers a little button and a latch. I realized that if I moved the latch one way and pressed that button, the handcuffs would release. Now free, she knew she only had a minute to think of something useful, something that could either save her or help police find the culprit if she were killed. My brother and I always watched CSI and Law and Order. The detectives on those shows were always looking for clues. Quickly, she grabbed the watch the man had left on the nightstand. Then she rushed to the other side of the room where he had placed a few toys for her. She snatched a small clay turtle. Finally, she ran to the bathroom and grabbed her underwear. She remembered that on CSI, they often used a victim's underwear in sexual assault cases, as she wanted him punished for what he did. But her investigation was cut short as she heard the heavy footsteps of her kidnapper coming up the stairs. I jumped back on the bed, put the handcuffs on, and when he walked through the door, he just looked at me. In my mind, I was praying, please don't touch me, because I had things on me I was afraid he might find. On the third day, Jeanette's family was devastated by the lack of progress. Despite Detective Randall's tremendous efforts, police still had nothing that could lead to Jeanette's location. When officers tried to tell Rosalia that after 48 hours, most kidnapped children are never found, she refused to listen. I feel very, very sad because you are scared. My daughter, she's a little kid. She's hardly 10 years. I asked the police, what happened with my daughter? When will my daughter get back? He said, maybe never. I'm screaming. I screamed a lot. I haven't seen my daughter for 3 days. I don't feel comfortable because I didn't protect her. I didn't protect her. I don't feel good. It was at this point that Jeanette became numb to her kidnapper's assaults. Her only impulse was to stay strong and stick to her strategy. She needed to continue manipulating him. It was her only chance at survival. My befriending tactic was working. He asked me, "Are you hungry?" I looked at him and said, "Yeah." He gave me his cell phone and made me call for a pizza. He gave me the phone number from his cell, and I gave it to the man on the other end. The man on the phone said, "Can I get your address?" He told me the address. Just as she had memorized the car's turns days earlier, she committed every detail to memory. If she ever got away, she was determined to bring him down. Eventually, the doorbell rang. Her kidnapper left the room briefly and returned with a smile. He placed a pizza box on the floor. On top of the box was a missing person flyer with her face on it. He then told her he would get rid of her that night before leaving the room again. Once the door closed, she threw the pizza aside and began gathering all the evidence she could. She stuffed everything into the pizza box and hid it under the bed. When he returned, he grabbed a pillow and started smothering her with it. Gasping for air, she tried to turn her face to the side, but the man was too strong. As oxygen deprivation set in, a massive rush of adrenaline surged through her body. With one final push, she managed to slide her face just enough to the side to grab one desperate breath. About 5 seconds after I got some air, he pulled the pillow off and asked me, "Do you want to take a shower?" When she came out of the shower, she dressed quickly, ensuring the pieces of evidence she'd gathered were still in her pockets. Then she heard loud knocking at the door downstairs. She wanted to scream, but her kidnapper immediately jumped on her, covering her mouth. Afraid he would try to kill her again, she forced herself to calm down and waited for the person at the door to leave. We sat in the room for a while. After he heard that everything was quiet, that's when he took me downstairs into the garage. It was completely dark. He then forced her into his car, put her back in handcuffs, and began to drive. The ride was long, and Jeanette couldn't stop crying and screaming. Midway, she took a moment to calm herself, trying to make sense of everything that had happened. I remember just crying to myself and saying, I did the best I could. I was preparing myself for my own death. But even then, she hadn't fully surrendered. Once again, she did her best to memorize every turn, but this drive lasted over 30 minutes, making it far more difficult than the first trip. After a while, the car pulled into the neon-lit parking lot of a liquor store near the highway. The car stopped, and as soon as it did, he grabbed me by my hair. I looked around and asked, "Where are we?" He said, "I'm letting you go." As he held me by the back of my head, by my hair, he pulled me toward him. He said, "If you ever tell anybody what I did, or who I am, or anything about me, I will come back for you, and I will kill your family, and I will kill you too." As her kidnapper drove away, she ran toward the liquor store. She couldn't believe she had succeeded. She had somehow gained his trust. These thoughts and emotions flooded her mind. Before she knew it, she was standing face to face with the cashier. I was just all kinds of emotions at once. I remember the gentleman behind the counter looking at me and asking, "Are you okay?" Then he said, "You're the little girl from TV." The man behind the counter didn't hesitate. He handed her the phone, and when he saw how distraught she was, he took it back and called 911 himself. She said, "Let me use the phone." I said, "Okay, here's the phone." When she started dialing, she was panicking, scared. She didn't know how to dial the number. Once the San Jose Police Department learned that Jeanette had been found in East Palo Alto, they raced to her location. Detective Randall was overjoyed to finally see the little girl with her own eyes. But in the back of her mind, she knew they had to move fast if they were to capture the culprit. I walked up to her and said, "Hello, Jeanette. My name's Heather, and I'm here to help you." Before I could say anything else, she let me know that she had some evidence in her pocket. She proceeded to pull toys, her underwear, the kidnapper's watch, and other items from her pockets. Stunned by the girl's cleverness, Randall asked if she had anything else that could help catch him. Jeanette asked for a piece of paper and drew the house, parts of the address, his exact phone number, and every other detail she could recall from her captivity. Seeing how observant she was, Randall posed a crucial question. I asked her, "Do you think you can find his house?" She said, "I think I can," and she said she could direct us by saying right or left, right or left. While police headed back to San Jose to search for the house, another officer began calling every pizza place in the area, trying to match the phone number to a complete address. But before they got that confirmation, they were already closing in, with Jeanette trembling with excitement in the back of the patrol car. I felt brave. That's why I stood up in the back of the car and started yelling, "That's it!" Minutes later, Randall received confirmation from the pizza restaurant that it was indeed the correct address. She immediately ordered a SWAT team and a K-9 unit to raid the home. Our SWAT team then put a plan in place to take him into custody. They had a layout of the home from Jeanette. They went in and determined he was hiding in the attic. The suspect, David Montiel Cruz, attempted to evade arrest and threatened the officers inside. They released the dogs on him. He suffered multiple injuries to his arms and was escorted out of the house. Inside, Heather also found the evidence-filled pizza box under the bed. Police say they know little about the background of the suspect. He was arrested at this house early yesterday morning. The district attorney's office filed 9 felony charges against him, including burglary, sexual assault, rape, forcible lewd acts, battery, and a special circumstance. After the arrest, Rosalia was called. But emergency services needed to get Jeanette to the ER immediately. She had been stabbed, and her wounds still required treatment. So Rosalia and Paul followed and were finally reunited with her once she was stabilized. I remember them taking me to the hospital, running tests. I remember opening the door and seeing my mom. Her face was so bad, she didn't even look like my mom. I think she touched my mom's face. She said, "You're hurt." She was so brave. She didn't care about herself. She was worried about us. "You're everything to me. You and Paul are..." I was very happy because I'm with my daughter. It's like she was born a second time for me. The years that followed were not easy for Jeanette. For a long time, she dealt with her pain alone. She rarely left the house, trapped by a paralyzing fear of men and the outside world. But when she turned 15, after 6 years of therapy, something clicked. She finally decided to confront her fear and take action. 12 years later, TV producers reunited her with Heather Randall, the detective who, with the crucial help of one clever 9-year-old, ended the rampage of David Montiel Cruz and put him behind bars for life. Hi, it's so good to see you. I know, I never really got the chance to come back and tell you guys thank you for everything you did. I really appreciate it. What happened was, you were amazing. You were brave, you were strong, you're smart, and that's why you're here today. Even though her trauma shadowed her childhood, she refused to let it dominate her adult life. Today, she has chosen to follow in Heather's footsteps and study law enforcement. Her goal is to become a detective one day and help her community just as Heather helped her. Furthermore, she aims to become a voice for the missing and for all victims of violence. Everybody has a story. No matter what life throws at us, no matter the obstacles, we're all fighters. We all have the ability to keep going. I turned my fear into courage. I got my family back. Word count, 1,050. The reunion between Jeanette Tamayo and Detective Heather Randall was more than a television segment. It was a powerful closure to a chapter defined by unimaginable fear and extraordinary resilience. For Jeanette, meeting the woman who believed in her and acted on the evidence she provided was a profound moment of gratitude. For Randall, it was a living testament to the impact of diligent police work and the incredible strength of a child. Jeanette's journey into adulthood was paved with the challenges of post-traumatic stress. But her decision to study law enforcement marked a pivotal turn. She was no longer defined solely by what happened to her at 9 years old. She was actively reshaping her narrative into one of advocacy and protection. Her goal to become a detective stems from a deep-seated desire to provide others with the same hope and resolution she received. She understands the victim's perspective in a way few officers can, and she aims to use that empathy as a tool for justice. Her story also underscores the critical importance of community awareness and media involvement in missing persons cases. Despite the absence of an Amber Alert, the relentless media campaign in San Jose kept Jeanette's face in the public eye, which ultimately led to the liquor store clerk recognizing her. This aspect of her ordeal serves as a reminder that public vigilance can be a powerful force. David Montiel Cruz was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The evidence Jeanette meticulously gathered: the watch, the underwear, the clay turtle, and the precise details she recalled formed a compelling part of the case against him. Her ability to direct police to the house and the subsequent discovery of the pizza box full of evidence under the bed were pivotal in securing his conviction. The legal proceedings brought a measure of justice, though they could never erase the trauma. Rosalia and Paul Tamayo's recovery was both physical and emotional. The scars from that day, visible and invisible, remained. Yet, the family's bond, already strong, was forged into something unbreakable by the shared ordeal. Rosalia's guilt over not being able to protect her daughter gradually transformed into immense pride for Jeanette's bravery. Paul, who fought so valiantly as a teenager, carries the memory of that day as a reminder of his own courage and the fragility of life. In the years since, Jeanette has participated in numerous advocacy events and speaking engagements. She shares her story not for sympathy, but to empower. She emphasizes the mental fortitude she had to summon, the befriending strategies she employed as a survival mechanism, and the importance of never giving up, even when all seems lost. Her message resonates particularly with survivors of violence, offering a narrative not of perpetual victimhood, but of reclaiming power. Detective Heather Randall's career continued, but the Tamayo case always held a special place. It was a stark example of both the frustrating limitations of police work, like the poor quality camera footage, and its incredible potential when combined with a victim's resourcefulness. Randall has often cited Jeanette as one of the most remarkable survivors she has ever encountered. The legacy of July 8, 2003 is multifaceted. It is a story of a profound failure, the system's inability to issue an Amber Alert, the near miss of the security footage, but it is overwhelmingly a story of breathtaking success. The success of a child's intellect under pressure, the success of a family's enduring love, the success of a community's eyes and ears, and the success of a justice system that, when provided with the right tools, can deliver consequences. Jeanette Tamayo's life now stands as a beacon. By choosing a career in law enforcement, she is converting her personal nightmare into a public service. She is ensuring that her pain has a purpose, that her story becomes a handbook on survival for others. The little girl who memorized turns, manipulated her captor, and hid evidence has grown into a woman determined to light the way for the lost and speak for the silenced. Her courage, born from sheer desperation, has matured into a steadfast commitment to making sure that for others, the ending can be one of rescue and recovery, just like hers.